Hey, this is Cameron, and welcome to the I'm saving up for a Blackwell log. Whoa, whoa, whoa! Just kidding, this is the reaction log, and I have a lot of special spicy things in store for you today. So, I couldn't help but notice there's a lot of buzz on that Angine Poitrine video that I made. Yeah, I'm still babysitting the cat. Hey, and he's black and white too, which is sort of related to Angine Poitrine. I've watched several other videos of people talking about them, and they always put on this like, I'm not gonna do that. Angine Poitrine, Angine de Poitrine, something like that. They're Canadian rock. I didn't know they had rock in Canada. I thought that was an American thing. I did a brief overview of them. Some of you really enjoyed that. Some of you thought it was a little bit lacking. So I want to go over one detail, and this detail has honestly been keeping me up at night. I listened to their album once through, and I'm still confused about this. So let's make a pilgrimage back to their Wikipedia page. This right here, Leo frickin' Brouwer, sandwiched between Frank Zappa and John Schofield. I listened to their album. I hear Frank Zappa. I hear King Gizzard in there. I don't know about John Schofield and Gentle Giant, but you know what? I bet that they're in there too. But dag nabbit, I do not hear one single shred of Leo Brouwer. Maybe it's me. Maybe I haven't done enough of a deep dive into Leo Brouwer, which maybe this is a good opportunity for me to introduce myself. I am a classical guitarist here on YouTube. And what does it mean to be a classical guitarist? Well, it means that you probably should know who Leo Brouwer is. And admittedly, I haven't listened to as much as I probably should have. We learned in the Manuel Barrueco interview from like 2 years ago that he was pro-Castro, and that's why Manuel Barrueco doesn't play him. Manuel Barrueco is a fellow Cuban. I'm a half Cuban. My mom is white. And again, just looking through all this math rock, experimental rock, microtonal music, what does that mean, guys? We're gonna need an explanation of what microtonal music is, because I know none of you know what that is, right? Most musicians who have been on YouTube and have like been through the era of Jacob Collier, I like to think that era is still going on. He has a new big video that has dropped. I'm going to be looking at that soon. We know what microtonality is, and even if you don't know what it is, you experience it every day. In fact, it's impossible to get away from because it's in everything, even in the least expected places, and we'll talk about that later. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to listen to some Leo Brouwer greatest hits and try to internalize what's going on there. Then we're going to listen to Poitrine and Angine, the band, and we're going to see if we can see those influences at all. We don't have to listen very hard to see all the other influences because it's so obvious. If you flip to any freaking moment in that live recording, it's like, am I listening to King Gizzard right now? I said that in the last video. I meant it too after listening again. And then we're going to talk about microtonality, and then we're all going to go home after that. And this is going to be an amazing video that I just came up with in like 10 minutes, and I'm improvising right now. Hey, classical musician improvises. Not musically though, just in everyday life. Whenever I talk to anyone at all, I consider that improvising. Alright, without further ado, let's take a look at some Leo Brouwer, shall we? And however you feel about me, because I make controversial videos, I get that. I try to rock the boat and get everybody upset. At the very least, we're going to be listening to Leo Brouwer play guitar right now, which is kind of cool. So this is one of his most famous pieces, I'd say, and this is actually a video of the man himself playing it. So let's just see what we got here. I bet you guys know how to play that one. And sorry for all the dads out there. I know that it's strange hearing that scale not on the root A. If you know the root, post in the comments. Bring that one to your blues jam, fathers. Stop banging on your guitar, Leo, please. But also, we're seeing a lot of things right here. The same pentatonic figure, ba-da-da-da-da, and different registers on the instrument, and with different timbres. They say the guitar is an orchestra, a really crappy orchestra, and he is fully utilizing it right now. Listen to that again. Like straight up 3 different instruments. You just heard the strings, you just heard trumpets, you just heard the timpani banging on the thing. Even though it's just one classical acoustic guitar, huge timbre variety in that. That sounded straight out of Crazy Train, did it not? What is this? What is this drawing? Why are you making me look at that? You heard it there first? Actually, no, you heard it here first. Look at that. so far, and this is just one piece by him. And keep in mind, Leo Brouwer has written a lot of different, like, style or whatever, but that encompasses a lot of different music, from stuff like this that's very, like, kind of simple rhythm and harmony driven, but like very complete. Like, what's the word I can say for that? It almost sounds like a reduction of like a little symphony or something, you know? We have that kind of stuff, and then he's also written like super sparse, like atonal music that's gonna sound nothing like anything you would ever want to or have listened to, probably, unless you're like deep into this stuff, in which case, sorry, I don't mean to offend you, but it's true. Atonal or post-tonal music is not super palatable, and I think that that's a big confusion that a lot of people are having with like the microtonal buzz, because it's like, shouldn't that also not be palatable? And why is Antoine de Polyan so palatable? You know, it should be non-palatable. Well, there are reasons for that, and we'll talk about that, but let's keep listening to Leo Brouwer. Let's just appreciate how freaking cool he is, too. If I ever cut my hair, it's gonna be that haircut. Bowl cut, tinted glasses after that, too. Oh, was that a microtonal movement there? He just adjusted his tuning a little bit. Let's see that again. Whoa! Oh, man. Oh, okay, well, the video just abruptly ends there, I guess. Really? Dang, it always goes to the St. Jude ad. Please stop doing that. I have YouTube Premium too, but I refuse to use it. So that was pretty cool, and we will keep that in our ears and see how that might relate to, sorry, hold on, Angine de Poitrine. You know, this is someone who's been very important for classical guitar advocacy, just because he releases such a huge amount of music, and he's quite popular too, which is cool to see for a classical guitarist here on YouTube. This is Edson Lopes. Go check out his channel, please. But we're gonna hear him play Leo Brouwer. We'll do Etude number 6. He has a few Etude recordings, but we'll look at this one. It's a pretty short piece, but before we move on, just so we know exactly what we're hearing a consistent flow of 16th notes in 3/4, and we're hearing some pretty crunchy semitone like chords. And Leo Brouwer is utilizing, I think, the high E string, so that's like the consistent thing. And then these chords are shifting around that, so we get like this bass movement, and then we also get this harmonic movement with this one pedal tone that is like the high E. I think it's the high E. I've never looked at this piece, so I'm just like telling you what I hear. Overall, there's structure and it makes sense. Okay. And we're just flowing through a chord progression, a very pretty chord progression. My shirt is so dirty. Oh my god. You guys seeing all that? Those are all stains from food. Woo! You played it. Yeah, pretty nice, right? Okay, I want to show you one more, just so we get like a really wide range of Leo Brouwer here. I'm going to show you Pablo Rodriguez, Leo Brouwer, and he's going to be playing Tarantos, which is going to be a little more out there. And we're not going to listen to the whole thing. And also, I'd like to note, this is a performance setting too. So this is like legit. We respect performance settings here on Sore Hands. Alright. going to stop it there. I wanted to keep it going, but you'll notice that there's much less of a rhythmic drive in this one, which is a very identifiable part of Angine D Poitrine. Even if it's sparse rhythm, there's obviously some sort of larger pulse involved, but here it's very hard to hear that. It's very just out in the open, and you're just getting notes. And this is also more of an example of atonal or post-tonal music, which basically just means that we're not using our standard Western tonal system that we're used to, which is like tonic, predominant, dominant, back to tonic. Simply put, it's basically that, right? We're not really doing that. We're doing other stuff, and that's why we call it something different. Oh, and I forgot to mention it. There was one microtonal moment here. There it is. Did you hear that? But wasn't it kind of the least weird part about it? That was the microtonal part. Really, what you're gonna find the most weird about this kind of music is how spaced out the rhythm is and stuff, and just the note selection and how nothing resolves like in the way that we're used to. And again, the reason for that is because they're not using our standard tonal tools that we're used to hearing. Now, I don't know if this piece would actually be considered atonal. I think it would be personally because it sounds atonal, but at least my understanding of it, there are kind of levels to it. Like your first instinct for atonal music might just be like, oh, this is just a random selection of notes. But in reality, if you were to select notes randomly, you would probably end up with something that doesn't really sound that atonal. So in our standard system, we have 12 notes, right? From G to G, they sound like this. If I were to just select 12 notes from that randomly, the random order I get could be this. That was technically all 12 notes, but it kind of still sounded like I was in G major. Now, I was using a lot of things to help make it sound like G major, despite using all those notes. Like, particularly, I was accenting when I was on a note of G major. But hopefully from that, you can see how randomly selecting notes might not be the best way to go about making music that actually deviates from our tonal system. So they have new systems for composing this kind of music. And the first one I can think of right now are like 12-tone rows, which I haven't learned about in like years. So essentially, the technique is a means of ensuring that all 12 notes of the chromatic scale, which is what I just played, are sounded equally often in a piece of music while preventing the emphasis on any one note. Because if you were to emphasize one note, it's going to start sounding like that's the root. I kind of still sound like I'm playing in G major, which makes sense. It's hard for me to do because I would never play like that. But so you get the idea. You just have all the notes equally spaced, so there's no emphasis on any one note. And there are other methods for doing this too, and those would be like the methods of post-tonal or atonal music. I don't know how this was composed. It could have been composed by just like randomly selecting notes. I don't know how Leo Brouwer did this stuff, and I don't know if this would actually be considered like true atonal, but as far as I'm concerned, it is. It's atonal. All right. Yeah, the rhythm is really hard to follow, but it seems like there are these repeating, like, I think maybe 5 pulse ideas. Let me hear that again. So that was like 5. And then 5 again. And then there's like space between them. And then just something else. You'll find yourself listening for like repeated phrase ideas like ba-da-dum, 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 like that kind of thing. Which I feel like when people are listening to Antoine Pion, they're hearing it and they're acting like it's so avant-garde and so like, you can't even imagine what they're gonna sound like. I got so many comments like that. When they listed King Gizzard as a reference, I was like, I already know what they sound like. And I was right too. I knew exactly what they're gonna sound like. I know there's no way to prove that, but I knew. I think a lot of times people will just hear stuff like that and it's just weird enough, but still consistent with what they're used to with music, that it's just kind of in this sweet spot. But if you really want weird, this is weird. This is a hard listen if you're like not super familiar with this kind of stuff. There's a big barrier of entry here, but if you can cross that barrier, there's a lot of beauty to be found here. And I mentioned like the grouping of notes, but just like the overall like phrasing and how there's like this rising and falling like that lasted like a minute basically. When you're really listening for stuff like that, this then becomes a very cool and interesting performance. But that's what I would tell anyone who's like, why are we writing music like this? Because this is so clearly just offensive and nothing. Like, who wants to listen to this while cleaning their house, right? If Antween, how do you say their name again? Angine de Poitrine, if they're actually citing Leo Brouwer as one of their musical influences, then that's example enough right there. Because music like this is sort of like, why would we ever devise a mission to fly to the moon? Like, what's the point of that, you know? When you explore and solve complex problems that only exist for that like kind of specific scenario that's like complex, you end up finding these solutions that apply to a lot of different things. If this is one of their musical influences, I would bet you some of the stuff that we're hearing here will be put into Angine Poitrine in a more like palatable and like consumery kind of way, because obviously it's consumable because like it's gotten super popular in the short amount of time. And the best part about this is you don't even need to be a part of this process, because there's people writing music like this just because they want to. They just love the exploration of doing this kind of thing. But I guess the point I'm trying to make is that it's easy to see this as like silly and stupid, and that's weird coming from me because I call a lot of things silly and stupid. And honestly, any other day I would also call this silly or stupid. But here's the real answer that I'm trying to give you, you know? All of this stuff is important, and it all adds to the artistic toolbox that all of humanity has after stuff like this is written. Okay, I think we've heard enough Leo Brouwer. I am highly skeptical to hear any of this in Angine de Poitrine's music. Hey, and you know what? Actually, before we jump into Angine de Poitrine, I want to show you two examples of microtonality in like kind of popular music, because I think this will really show you just how common it is and how like kind of important and useful it can be just for creating effects in like music that isn't totally sterile and boring. Having these strict divisions of the notes, it's really boring. And in fact, I'm not going to show you an example of this, but if you're a guitarist and you're talking about microtonality, you should associate heavily microtonality with the blues and like rock music. Like when you're playing in your blues dad band every week, like whenever you do that, we even heard him do something like that. It was a little like quarter bend. That is using microtones to create more like character and depth in a note. Those uses, I'm tempted to call those subtle, but they're honestly not subtle. We're just used to them. We don't even hear those microtones. In fact, I think it would sound weird without those microtones. And you hear this especially when you hear pianists play blues solos on the piano, especially if they're not using a keyboard that has like that little like modulation wheel on it. It sounds pretty squarish in my opinion. It's hard to make that sound good. And that's just another reason why guitar is like the best instrument ever, because you have that strict division of the note, which can be useful for some things. Like you can get these really tight sounding scales and trills and stuff, and you can almost have like a harpsichord-esque sound on a classical guitar. But then at the same time you can bend between notes. For a pianist, you'd have to like have a tuning tool to like do something like that, you know? Alright, so my first example that I thought of with microtonal music is this right here. Yeah, we're listening to Meshuggah Bleed. What's up, guys? This isn't like an example of super popular pop music, of course, but if you ever go on a Spotify like Beast workout playlist, this song is going to be on it. Regular people listen to this, and they don't even notice the microtonal aspect of it. But listen, I'll show you. Show me the guitar. Can I get like a guitar playthrough? Oh, here we go. Dude, they have a guitar lesson. I should react to this. Oh my god. Yeah, dude. Alright, watch what he's doing. So we have our root note, and then on top of that, we're bending the string, gliding through, I think, a half step there. So we're hitting microtones all throughout that glide. And you don't even hear that. Like, when you listen to that, you're not thinking, oh, this is a microtonal piece right here. It's just music, you know? It's just music and how it works. Because, again, going back to that atonal piece that we just listened to, what makes something offensive and weird to listen to is the space and the rhythm. Not being able to hear the rhythm, that's when things start getting, like, really abstract and weird. And Angine de Poitrine, they tap into that a little bit. We'll listen to them, but they tap into it a little bit, but there's always that driving rhythm. Even even when it's odd, even when it's sparse, there's still a pattern to it. I guess my point is that it's not that special. So boom, there you go. All right, I want to show you one more example of microtonal music. All right, guys, don't judge me for this, but this is a Friends Like Me from Aladdin barbershop quartet. I know, guy, don't click off yet. Hold on now. I'm just kidding. No shade to barbershop quartets. You guys do a really cool thing. You actually adjust your pitches in the moment as the harmony changes, so you can be more in tune each moment that goes by throughout your piece, which is really cool. And what I'm talking about here, and again, speaking of microtones, the guitar is inherently microtonal, because when I play an E major chord, you can't tell, but that actually sounds really weird. And particularly the root and the third. It's crunchy. It's not perfectly in tune. The G sharp would have to sound like that. But basically, like, simply, if I were to tune this G sharp to be in tune, I'd have to tune it pretty substantially flat. All the other keys, like if I were to go to A major next, it would ruin the octave of the low A to the high A. So those are in tune. That sounds great. Now A major. Yeah. It sounds bad now. So basically how our modern instruments work is we split the difference. That's why the G sharp sounds kind of bad, but it's not that bad. You know, and everything else will sound pretty good and not terrible like the two A's sound. Like that. Pretty clear crunch. Versus... There we go, now we're getting there. So when you're playing a piece on guitar or piano, you kind of just have to deal with that, and you're inherently playing microtonal music. So that is, no pun intended, the rub. The literal rub. Notes rubbing together. Now, I'm showing you a barbershop quartet right now, because I want to show you this in action, where one of these singers, I'm pretty sure it's this guy, is going to be singing one note, a pedal tone, and then the harmony will be changing, and you'll hear him subtly fluctuate his one pedal tone to be like higher or lower, to stay in tune. And it's pretty cool. Not afraid, no, we're not afraid, not afraid. And he's just going to be singing that pedal tone. Meh. But you'll hear, as the other singers change, it's going to go like, meh. Like, it's just subtle changes. We're still staying on the same note. He's not going like, meh. It's not that. It's meh. Like, really subtly changing, so it's always in tune. It's this guy. Same note. So he's listening throughout that whole thing, trying to just make these little microtonal adjustments. And this is cool because it's an example of microtonal music. That is microtonal what you're hearing, but it's making it sound less weird. Less crunchy. And I'm just saying that because I feel like microtonal is this like buzzword that's synonymous with like avant-garde and weird, but this is actually using it to be less weird. And no wonder it's the least offensive part about Angine D. Poitrine, because it's not offensive. Like, microtonality is just not an offensive thing in my mind. Now, when your rhythms are super weird and, like, hard to follow, that's when things start getting offensive. But microtonality, especially when you're utilizing that with also keeping a root, so you have something to latch onto, and then there's also driving rhythm, like funky, groovy rhythm, like, what's offensive about that? This is pop music, basically. We're listening to Sabrina Carpenter. So, without further ado, I feel like this video should just be over. Wouldn't it be crazy if I made an Angine D. Poitrine video and I just never talk about that? You know what? I'm gonna watch a little bit of their live show. I might cut this. Screw you guys. You guys have seen this a million times. I just wanted to talk about whatever I just did. Alright, let's see what we got. Yeah, do the triangle. People also like that too, because they're weird and wacky. Wow. So far, we have like a sparse, funky groove. Yeah, that's like, people hate that, right? Anyone who likes music likes that. Oh yeah, also we're looking for Leo Brouwer influence. So, keep that in mind. Do you still have that in your ear? Hopefully. I wouldn't wouldn't have even noticed it was microtonal had I not been told that before listening to this. Like, it doesn't even sound that microtonal. It just sounds like a bass line. It is microtonal, of course, but it's so similar to just what you hear normally that it's like, I don't know. It just sounds like a groove so far. And that's what pisses me off too, because I don't get pissed off at comments, but it's just the same story. Whenever I talk about Alan Holdsworth, whenever I talk about anyone, it's always the fans of those people just going like, you have no idea what you're even hearing right now. You don't even understand anything. And it's like, I feel like I do. I feel like I get it. I guess you could decide if I actually get it or not, but I feel like I do, so whatever. And again, not to trash the band either, because I think they're cool. They're like a very cool King Gizzard influenced and certainly not Leo Brouwer influenced so far band that I think, like, if there's more bands like that, that's a cool thing. I guess I just wanted to address, like, mainly the microtonal thing and what makes music weird, like what makes it sound actually weird. And I just feel like they're not really doing a lot of what, in my opinion, makes music sound actually weird. All right, well, let's keep listening. So I will say, like, the standalone figures are quite odd, but the fact that they repeat and they're using a loop pedal, I figured that out since the last video. They repeat a lot, which is a great way to make something that's very strange normal over time. Just do something over and over again and people will just kind of get used to it. That's good musical advice. That's good life advice too. If you have some like weird thing that you want to do, just start doing it and just be known for doing that, and people won't even see it anymore, like, after a while. What makes like that Leo Brouwer piece more upsetting, I think, is that you have those repeated figures, but then they happen like 3 times and then you just move on after that, you know? Like, you're not holding down this groove for a long time and really allowing the listener to understand what it is. I can use my prior knowledge of pop music to pretty fully interpret what's going on here. Like, I don't need any other like special training. All right. We're getting some like odd funky rhythms, none of which I'm gonna like explain or break down in any way because I can't. Unless I have sheet music, I have no idea what's going on. But it's repetitive, they're feeding it to us many, many times in a row, and eventually it just kind of becomes like, it's just normal. Not really hearing any Leo Brouwer influence. I'd love to hear if you guys are hearing some Leo Brouwer influence. And if you are, please post a comment about it. I'm not. I'm hearing King Gizzard, and I'm hearing Zappa, and I'm hearing everyone else in that list who I've never heard of, but I'm sure they sound exactly like this, because they all sound exactly the same. Let's keep going. Definitely King Gizzard right there. Wow. I don't need to keep listening. Yeah, you know what? We're done. We're done. I'm not gonna listen anymore. They're a cool band. I like them. And like I said, I'm going to clean my house. I guess today is Sunday. Oh, I don't want to clean. I don't want to clean today. I might wait. That might be a Monday project, actually. But, like, this is the album. I'm gonna listen to this one. My main critique is them invoking the name of Leo Brouwer when it just shouldn't have been invoked. And I take that very personally. And that's why this is relevant to me. And that's why I get to talk about this right now. You know, all the jazz YouTube guys, they get to talk about this and it's like sort of adjacent to them. But you know what? It's adjacent to me because Leo Brouwer. Hey, don't say that you're influenced by Leo Brouwer and not expect Sore Hands to say something about it. And I know some of you are going to be like, musical influence doesn't mean you need to write music that sounds exactly like the person. Yeah, it does. Shut up about it. Hey! I think we can go ahead and end this one here. Hey, of course, if you made it this far, be sure to subscribe and leave a like. I don't know, this is just like an addition to the last video I made. That one got like 30,000 views in 24 hours. That's pretty good. That's like Marson views, so like, I don't think this is gonna be the new Marson, but you know, it is nice. It is nice, I gotta admit. I don't know if I could possibly milk this any longer than 2 videos, because I kind of gave up everything I got in this one. But I hope you enjoyed that. I have an email in the description, video ideas, whatever. I used to offer guitar lessons, you could contact me there. I don't anymore. I might in the future though. I have a Patreon where I will soon be announcing a recital class for people who want to practice performing their classical compositions in front of people. Alright. Well, I will see you in the next Angine Poitrine video. Bye.